Looks like you can't handle anything heavy. Actually, yes, I can absolutely handle something heavy. You wanna see? Grasps firmly. Hello, and welcome to Geisha. This is a slow burn Yandere visual novel in which you play as a geisha with a client named Hikaru, who has become your new regular in the last couple of months. He seems quite polite and interesting, and is definitely quite handsome as well. But as you get further tangled up with this mysterious man, you can't help but wonder, who is he really? And what dangerous secrets is he hiding? Let's get started. Some aspects of this game may differ from the actual world of geishas for the sake of the story. I asked not to expect 100% faithful representation of these artists. The characters are fictional and are not based on real people. This visual novel is intended for a 16+ audience as it contains vulgar language, mentions of the Yakuza, sensitive topics such as death and harassment, obsessive behaviors, and questionable behaviors. If you are underage, refrain from playing it. Thank you. I realized long ago that time forgives nothing, not even the memories of better days, not even those who need its mercy the most. I don't remember when I first came to that realization. Perhaps when, in an attempt to remember yesterday, and there was a fog so thick veiling my memories that it was impossible to see through it. I'm scared, but I'm not scared of not remembering precisely. I'm scared of forgetting. What is your name? Yinny. What is your artistic name as a geisha? Oh no, I don't know. Still Yiddy? Wrong. Mrs. Kawa's piercing voice thundered deafeningly throughout the room. Every one of us froze in our positions. The music stopped for what felt like the umpteenth time in that class. I caught a few wary, exhausted sighs behind me. Even the musicians looked fed up. She started tapping her fan against the table in an impatient rhythm. What's gotten into you this morning? You're all hopelessly out of sync. Or maybe it's because we've been practicing non-stop for hours. I was tempted to say. Our dance teacher recently found out that there was to be a banquet for high-ranking officials where we were hired. And since then, she hasn't let us catch a break. Although I suspect she's just using it as an excuse to take out her frustrations on us. My eyes hurt just watching you dance. You're moving as though you were dancing on hot rocks. Her comment earned a few subtle eye rolls. Mrs. Kawa leaned back in her chair and pinned us with an icy stare. Do I really have to teach you the basic steps all over again? Fine. Let's do it then. But I expect no mistakes in this lesson. Understood. Welcome to Mrs. Kawa's beginner dance lesson. Today you'll revisit the very basics of traditional dance, but be careful. You'll have to react quickly to her questions. Remember to use your logic. Good luck. Oh, I'm so screwed. Let's see. Let's start with the most basic one in fan dancing. When your fan is closed, where should you hold it? Put it in front of your body? There was no way I didn't remember it. It was one of the first things she taught me when I began training as an apprentice years ago. Which part of your body should lead a turn? Your upper body? Good. Now all that's left is to put it into practice. What is a fan's purpose in dance? To become part of the history you're telling. That's why you must remember that when you dance, the fan isn't just an object, it's an element of the story you're telling. It can represent something as delicate as a snowflake, or a cherry blossom, or something as complex as the waves of the sea or rain. How do you represent flirtation? Cover half of your face? Correct. There is nothing more attractive to a man than indirect flirting. Really? The beginner lesson with Mrs. Kawa has concluded. Your result was magnificent. You've shown that you still master the basics of the skill. Mrs. Kawa is very pleased with your performance. Woohoo! Time passed in the blink of an eye, with lesson after lesson. Before I could realize it, the end of the day was fast approaching. The sun was already hiding shyly among the buildings, and the sky turned an orange color with strokes of purples, giving it a magnificent touch that reminded me of the color of amethysts. I turned the corner, and the smooth, clean wood beneath my feet gives way to a tatami that creaks with age and the atmosphere becomes old and cramped. Of all the artists in this house, I'm the only one with a room far away from the others. It didn't bother me. If anything, many times I found comfort in the silence. But here comes the but. I suppose it's the kind of place that you'd imagine when someone tells you about a haunted place filled with ghosts, since nobody ever comes here, and I had neither the time nor the motivation to clean it. Over time, it became a place that many new interns avoided. I even heard rumors that some girls coming home from work heard footsteps in this courtyard, even when there was no one around. Luckily, I'd never been superstitious about those things. As I approached my room, I began to make out a hunched figure in front of my door, and oh, how I wished it was a ghost. My pace slows, delaying the imminent confrontation, because of course, why else would that woman be looking for me, if not to ruin what's left of my afternoon, and incidentally, my existence in general. The sound of the old tatami creaking underneath my feet made her aware of my presence. Her intense black eyes pierced me like a metal bar in a blazing fire, burning me. That look was scarier than any ghost you might encounter in the halls at midnight. In fact, she was a perfect ghost repellent, if there were any ghosts left in these halls. Good evening, Mother. She returns my greeting with a curt nod as she approaches me. I came to let you know that tonight you have a meeting with a client. The usual one. It wasn't even necessary for her to say who the client was. He had been the only one who I'd been attending during the last 3 months. coming once a week, and the only one who seemed to have the freedom to make a last-minute arrangement without Mother telling him off. Him. I stifled a frustrated sigh, preferring to spare myself a murderous look from the woman in front of me. I'd confronted her about it many times, but all I ever got was a reprimand or some ungrateful yelling, and it seemed that I didn't have a say in the matter since Mother wasn't going to take no for an answer. Her face said, "Oh, not at least. It's as long as a request from him, anyway." To be honest, it seemed like Mother was kissing the very ground he walked on. I wonder why. And for her to treat someone like that, well, there must have been a lot of money changing hands behind the scenes. Nothing is more precious in that woman's eyes than the glittering gleam of money. By 10 o'clock, you should be ready to go to room 20 as usual. I left your kimono and hair ornaments on your dresser. There aren't enough attendants tonight, so you have to get dressed by yourself. Do you understand? Her cold and direct tone didn't surprise me. She had always been a woman who never beat around the bush, and saw unnecessary interactions as pointless. Those of us who have been under her tutelage for years are already used to it, though. Mother started smoothing down the sleeve of her kimono, as if my very presence unnerved her. At least it was a mutual feeling. Yes, Mother. I had no choice but to speak. Even though the little devil sitting on my shoulder was telling me to screw everything, my rational side was stronger. And in the blink of an eye, she disappeared down the hallway, her footsteps on the old wood fading away until they could no longer be heard. I was left alone, in the middle of the hallway. I entered the small space I called my room and closed the door behind me. The backgrounds are so pretty. My room itself was a visual trick. While it seemed spacious and roomy from the outside, as soon as you entered, you realized it was actually a tiny room where I had to stack everything meticulously for a person to fit. This room used to be an entertainment room for guests, but due to its inconvenient location, they decided to reduce the space and turn it into a room for the staff. Although at night it seemed like a sinister place due to its total lack of maintenance, I often appreciated the peace that it gave me. I looked around me. Do you want to start the preparation? No, not yet. No, I haven't finished looking around my room yet. It's cat plushie. It is my lifelong friend. A cute little cat which has been there since the moment I was born, courtesy of my father. It has several tears, patches and wears from the years, but it's still by my side after these 22 consecutive years. And since it is winter, I sewed a tiny scarf around it so it doesn't get cold. As silly as it may sound, bamboo paper. Sometimes I use it to practice my handwriting, but most of the time it ends up in silly doodles, so now it is in a corner, abandoned. My accounting book and some invoices were scattered carelessly across the table. Months ago, I would have avoided even looking at the checkboxes on the spreadsheet, scared of seeing numbers in threatening red. But interestingly, I've been dealing this last month quite well, and I think it's because of my luck. I won a contest that I swore I never entered, where I didn't have to pay the electricity bill for an entire year. I think your client might have something to do with this, and I think he likes you a little bit too much. Then my landlord considerably reduced the rent. I wonder if it's because of your Yakuza client threatening your landlord. When I asked him, he said it was simply because he considered me a good tenant. It was strange, since shortly before that, whenever I walked past him, he always looked at me like he hated me with his guts. Maybe people's opinions change that fast. A box full of children's storybooks that my sister sent me a week ago. According to her, it's to remember our childhood, and now here they are in the middle of the room, taking up space that I could use. My choice of clothes was, to say the least, quite poor. And these are clothes I wear when I'm not wearing my usual attire. Shirts and sweaters, all to ensure comfort after spending the day trapped in an uncomfortable kimono, all in rather dull colours. In my defense, my room didn't give me the luxury of making my closet any bigger. While the coat rack could be considered a closet, it's a kimono that a pretty loyal client named Daichi gave me some time ago. It was the first gift I received after I started being a geisha, so I still have it on display here, although I haven't seen him in a while. Could something have happened to him? Yeah, I think he's dead. Or maybe he was no longer that interested in me. I forget that thought as quickly as it came. No, I think that's everything. Yeah. Do you want to start the preparations? Yes. I sat down in front of my vanity, and out of habit picked up the brush to begin applying the white makeup that would soon cover my face and neck. My hands neither hesitate nor tremble. They have repeated this gesture so many times that they are now unfamiliar with error. I draw the line on the eyes with precision, making sure it's not too bold, but also not too barely noticeable. Then I dip another brush into a bright fiery red that promised to catch other people's eyes and let it stain my pale lips. I looked at myself for a few more moments in the mirror to see if everything was in its proper place. I was always amazed by the reflection of that geisha, despite seeing it almost every day. I sometimes would even forget that it was nothing more than another mask of mine. As I stepped outside, I saw the waning moon hanging in the sky alongside her daughters, the stars watching my every move. The silent atmosphere that surrounded me transformed into a contrast of laughter, the sound of the shamisen, and even loud conversations. As I walked through all these rooms, where through the sliding paper doors I could see the silhouettes of people moving, barely giving them more than a sideways glance. Room 20 was the most secluded room, located at the end of the corridor, away from the lively atmosphere. It was usually chosen by customers who wanted more privacy or weren't too fond of noise. As I walked down the corridor, I could feel the laughter, the constant sound of various instruments, and the steady footsteps gradually subside. The shadows at the doorways of the rooms diminished, and the voices became whispers filled with secrets that couldn't escape those four walls. While the first few doors were usually occupied by families or tourists eager to immerse themselves in Japanese tradition, further on were the merchants and businessmen who, under the guise of having fun, came to discuss matters. Of course, they didn't mind talking about it in front of us. After all, we were just their entertainment for the evening. And they knew we could keep our mouths shut. I stopped in front of the door to room 20 and knocked gently. He was somewhat peculiar, and I still don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'd encountered all sorts of customers by these years. Customers who, after a few drops of sake, would start doing disgusting jokes. Indifferent customers who are almost impossible to entertain, or even better, those customers whose eccentricity surpassed any fiction. They all had something in common. They were as easy to read as a children's book, but he was another history. A very complicated history. Silence. There was no light coming from inside, and I wondered if he had even arrived. Before I could do anything, a voice cut through the silence. "Come in." Soft as silk, but cold as a summer night. I opened the door slowly. The first thing I noticed upon stepping inside was a thick caramel resin scent that quickly enveloped me in an almost suffocating embrace. One I was already quite used to by then. "Ooh, this is really pretty." And there he was. He was sitting on the tatami in a relaxed pose so that his yukata carelessly fell off one shoulder. Wow, slutty. With the light from outside casting a flattering glow on him. Oh my god, he's so pretty. Hello. I dared to inspect him a little, taking advantage of the fact that he wasn't looking at me. His eyes were closed, and between his fingers rested was the source of the smell, a bright red pipe from which a greyish smoke emerged. The large tattoo of a dragon that rested on his chest seemed to be following me with those round eyes. Could I also follow his chest with something else? I almost stepped back when I found myself surprised by a pair of blue eyes. "Are you gonna stand there staring all day?" I didn't know I was the entertainment tonight. I feel the heat quickly spreading from my ears to my cheeks. Which cheeks? My butt cheeks? And I inwardly almost thanked the white makeup I was wearing. What I couldn't help was looking away. His eyes were making me nervous. "Excuse me, sir. It wasn't my intention." "It was totally your intention." "Yeah, it was totally my intention. I'm looking." "Shut up." At my response, he closes his eyes again while taking a puff from the pipe. "Oh no? What a shame." And here I was, making an extra effort today to try and impress you. Consider me impressed. I guess I'll have to try harder next time. Speaking of hard, here we go with that dry sarcasm of his. If it weren't for the fact that by that point I already knew how to deal with him, I would have blushed like the first time he made one of those ironic comments to me. Alright, well, I am going to not indulge him. You honor me with your words. Sharp but not disrespectful. A clean cut. I was already used to his dry jokes. Although my rejection of his comment would have been firm, I knew him so well up to this point that I knew my rejection wouldn't affect him at all. And sure enough, he let out a small laugh that echoed through the silent room, the smoke coming out of his mouth, as cold as always. I don't pronounce that. He almost purred those words. I pretended not to have heard it. He raised his hand and invited me to sit across from him. Oh god, Jesus, hello. What the hell? And we sank into silence. When is he gonna sink into me? I glanced out of him in the corner of my eye, this time more subtly. I remember the first time I saw him in this very room. Man, he's so pretty, like what a sight. How far down does that dragon go? I felt somewhat intimidated by him because of his robust and imposing appearance. Though I felt most like that when that deep dark sea looked at me. And as time went on, I realized that he was the perfect embodiment of don't judge a book by its cover. He was surprisingly calm, though I often suspected that he was actually indifferent to everything around him. He usually asked me to play the shamisen for him, or make small talk about something trivial. What he was the most enthusiastic about talking about was art. I'm lost in his thoughts, and I didn't know what to say or do. Sometimes I prefer him to be that kind of bossy client who orders you around. Everything would be easier instead of trying to guess what he wants. Sir, I told you, I want you to call me by my name. I'll scream your name. For weeks he had been insisting that I call him by his name for some reason. Because he has a crush on us. I'd never gotten used to calling my clients by their names. Well, in the first place, no client has ever asked me to. Most of them liked how Sir sounded to them. It made them feel more important, bigger in the room, I suppose. I mean, I don't think he really needs any more help to emphasize how big he is. But then again, this man was a strange exception in all the aspects. Call him by his name, Mr. Hikaru. He sighed. What did that sigh mean? I was thinking about how you pronounce my name. It wasn't what I expected. I couldn't lie. I didn't know whether to be offended by his comment. Hikaru balanced the pipe between his fingers, his gaze fixed on the wisp of smoke rising from the mouthpiece. I thought you sound like a bamboo flute. Harsh yet mellow. Yeah, I'll show you how I work a bamboo flute. Instead, you sound more like a cello. Deep and resonant. Yeah, I bet you know all about deep. Shut up, Yiddy. I wasn't quite sure whether to feel flattered or insulted. He must have seen my somewhat bewildered expression because he continued speaking. The cello is an instrument I've always felt a certain affinity for, so say it more often. My name. I like the way it sounds. And to say it left me speechless was an understatement. How could he say something like that with such a serious face? I'm flattered, Mr. Hikaru. His expression remained impassive, but I could clearly read in his eyes. He should be flattered. I just paid you a compliment. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in from the garden and brushed his hair away from his face. That's when I noticed the weariness in his eyes and the deep dark circles beneath them, as if the last thing he'd done in the past few days was sleep. It wasn't the first time I'd seen him that tired. Sometimes he'd disappear for weeks at a time, and when he came back, he always looked gaunt from exhaustion, as if he had been through unimaginable things. You don't look well. Has the construction project kept you up at night again? He massages the bridge of his nose. Since we met, he barely shared any details about his life, but I knew he ran a construction company. Yeah, is that what he calls it? And was almost always traveling between Shibuya and Shinjuku, and it seemed to be taking years off his life. There are more incompetent people than I thought. I wondered if he really had such incompetent employees, or if he was just a boss with unrealistically high expectations. Though, to be honest, I'd never seen him criticize my service, so I doubted that he was that kind of boss. And others who try and find an opportunity to sabotage you. Sabotage? Maybe he meant a rival company trying to steal his clients. No, I think he's talking about us. Doesn't sound very charming. It isn't. Especially if no one else can handle it. As if just talking about it stressed him out, he took a long drag of his pipe, and in real time, I saw his pupils constrict and the blue expand. It couldn't be healthy to consume that stuff. He always had that red pipe dangling in his fingers, as if he couldn't bear to be without it. Every time I entered that room, the smell of burnt caramel enveloped me and lingered even after I left. It wasn't my business, and perhaps it was the best to let him go. But I often found myself worried about what that pipe might be doing to him. I also wonder what his pipe might do to me later. Suddenly, an idea came to me. Wait a moment, please. I stood up and approached the small wooden sideboard against the wall, where the tray I was looking for rested. Mr. Hikaru raised an eyebrow when he saw what I was holding. Is that? I don't think that in all the time we've known each other, you've yet to witness a tea ceremony performed by me. I placed the bowl in front of him. Would you like to try it, Mr. Hikaru? It has very good effects. At my comment, he slowly lowered his pipe from his lips. If a cup of that green liquid were enough to solve my problems, I wouldn't be here. He didn't say no. With all the time I've known him, I understood that if he didn't say no directly, that meant that's a yes, even though he doesn't say it. I smile at him and start explaining. Matcha has an intense flavor, but it calms the body without numbing the mind. So when I'm tired after a long day at work, I turn to it. It's a good companion, really. Maybe it'll do you good, not do him good. My hidden tone was clear. It's better than that thing you have in your hands. You have nothing to lose by trying it, I reminded him. He slowly put the pipe aside and all of his attention focused on me. Do you really like to drink that thing? I do, very much. And my favorite artist insists. Go on. It's time to show Mr. Hikaru a wonderful tea ceremony. Try to make him the best possible and surprise him. Although no matter what you do, he'll probably like it. Yeah, that's why I like him. He's like a simp. He reminds me of a husky. First, pour hot water into the bowl. Take some matcha powder with the spoon. Try not to take too much. Boop. Take the whisk from the holder and whisk the matcha carefully until the surface turns into a fine whitish foam. And we're whisking. I got it. Then we might have to whisk a little bit more. There you go. The matcha is ready to drink. I stopped moving my hand where I saw the familiar whitish foam appear on the matcha. Satisfied, I placed the bowl of green liquid in front of him, giving a slight bow to invite him to try it. He simply nodded and picked up the bowl between his fingers in a strangely careful way, and surprisingly without hesitation, brought the cup to his lips and took a short sip. I tried to hide my anticipation for his reaction. Let me guess he hates it. It's not so bad. Oh, a feeling of satisfaction touched my chest. I sure hope he touches my... I mean, what? It wasn't the best thing I've ever tasted, or it's so good. But coming from the man in front of me, it was a miracle. I'm glad to hear that. The second sip was victory. His lips curved a little more, like he was thinking about something funny. My curiosity piqued. Sir Hikaru, you seem amused about something. I was just thinking about the first time we met. You were a cold and unbreakable wall, although you always smiled at me. He lifted the cup and took another sip. Now it seems like I mattered to you a little more. Yeah, I bet you like that, huh? You're even being more open with me. I almost rolled my eyes at that nickname. Almost, sure. And many times I insisted him to tell me what it meant. But he still hadn't told me yet. Well, I looked it up and apparently it means Mrs. in Estonian. It's true that the first time we met, I decided to be a bit more closed off around him. Maybe because he made me feel a bit nervous. And my gut told me he wasn't trustworthy. I'm sure he'll do something else to my gut later. But as he started coming around more often, things changed. We became close. Or as close as we could be as worker-client. Mr. Hikaru also seemed to relax around me and started making those ironic comments I'd already gotten used to. Now that I think about it, I was gonna ask you something. Yes? Are you free tomorrow? I want to take you out for dinner. Ooh. Yeah, I'm free. I carefully closed the door behind me and sighed with relief. The night had gone smoothly. We stayed talking a little longer, and before I knew it, it was almost midnight. I then stared at my intertwined hands for a few moments. Dinner, huh? At first I was reluctant about it, but I didn't know if it was because of his surprising insistence, or because in a way he inspired confidence in me after these long months of getting to know each other. Either way, tomorrow, I would see him again. And I didn't know if I liked the idea or not. The lights in the other rooms had already been turned off, so I was walking tentatively down the dark hallway. My steps began to slow as a lanky figure approached from the other side. It was a very familiar blonde man, with a large burn adorning the entire left side of his face. His characteristic playful smile and those feline eyes that seemed to follow you everywhere. Dog. What kind of name is that? Was in his own words, Mr. Hikaru's right-hand man and was always seen by his side. There were funny contrasts of yin and yang. While Mr. Hikaru was rather indifferent and reserved, Dog had a joyful and extroverted personality that was contagious to everyone around him. I gave him a slight nod and he returned it with an exaggerated bow that made me laugh. Good evening, miss. How'd it go with the boss? Smooth. It was nice to talk to Mr. Hikaru. Silence. He looked at me in a strange way, and I looked back. I would have thought that Hikaru and nice would be in the same sentence. Did you say something? Not at all. I'm glad you had a pleasant evening. I was going to pick up the boss to take him home. You're his chauffeur as well. What can I say? It's tough being mostly talented and everything. He wiped away a non-existent tear from his cheek, but then I looked at him. Dog seemed much easier to approach than Mr. Hikaru, and also more willing to talk. Perhaps I could ask him some questions I've been having. About the comment Hikaru made. There were some words that Mr. Hikaru whispered, which I pretended not to hear. That has been out of my mind for the rest of the night. And my favorite artist insists I shouldn't be asking something like this, especially since it's none of my business and it's unprofessional, but technically your shift is over and you're no longer at work. Besides, Dog doesn't seem like the type to judge you. The little devil on my shoulder whispered. Dog looked at me curiously when I started playing with my fingers. How do I say it? Dog? Does Mr. Hikaru visit other artists? As soon as the question left my mouth, the regret came to light. How could you ask it in that way? The heat began to rise up my neck. You sounded ridiculous. He's definitely going to laugh at you. No. I raised my hand, surprised by his immediate response. He pretended to think, although it was clear that he already knew the answer. As far as I know, the boss has only been visiting you these past months. Doesn't seem interested in others now, I think. I really like how Hikaru's been a very slow burn yandere so far. To your face. But behind your back, he's definitely been doing some shady stuff. Because, your rent has been lowered, you've got free electricity, and just a bunch of other stuff as well. He's definitely doing stuff, behind your back to keep you safe. So his obsessiveness and violence is definitely pushed outwards, away from you. I wonder when we're going to start getting glimpses of it. And then he leaned towards me as if he was going to tell me a secret. Also, let me tell you something. Every time he comes to visit you, he seems pretty excited. Oh, as much excitement as someone like him could show. He laughed to himself. Don't worry, I doubt anyone could take your place as his favorite artist. He misinterpreted my question. Well, clearly he was going to misinterpret it with the way you said it. Couldn't the air suddenly split in two and swallow me? Just like how I'm going to swallow him. For some reason, it's starting to get very hot, even though the cold night air wrapped around us in a hug. I see. I feel honored. As you may have noticed, Mr. Kuroiwa is someone who has a special appreciation for culture and art. He's a great collector and his fingertips that touch more works of art than you could ever imagine. And there's nothing that entertains him more than the cultural chat, so he's always been a fan of geishas and their vast knowledge. And he managed to have a conversation with that living history book. I had to give you credit for that. I could see that every time we talked about history, dances, music, his eyes would suddenly light up. He was kind of cute, to be honest, in a way. Now that I think, perhaps it's a family thing. It is? Dog massaged the back of his neck and nodded. It's a very traditional family. Yeah, that's the word. Traditional. Maybe next time you can ask him about it. It wouldn't be very professional of me to try and pry into the private lives of my clients. You're already stooping around my boss's life by asking me questions. My horrified face when I realized made him burst out laughing. I won't tell him. This will be our little secret. Anyway, it's getting late. You should go back to your room before some yokai eats you. Thanks to his comment, I realized that several minutes must have passed while we were standing in the hallway talking. If I didn't get back to my room on time, I might face Mother's fury for not being where I was supposed to be. That's the real yokai I could face tonight. Yeah, it's true. I should go back now. We can talk in another moment. And if you catch me in a good mood, maybe one day I'll tell you about the time the boss almost got locked in a pachinko parlor. and the security guard mistook him for a thief and almost arrested him. Wait, that really happened? He winked at me as if we shared an intimate secret. In a moment of indulgence and because nobody was watching me, I rolled my eyes. Good night, dog. Make sure no yokai eats you either. Good night, lady. The blonde man watched her walk away until the darkness of the night swallowed her. He sighed as he swayed on the spot. Seems like Hiki is good at keeping up appearances if he managed to deceive her into thinking he was a nice person. Oh, just imagining it sent a shiver down his spine, like a cat that had been splashed with water. Although I wonder how long this charade will last, and how she will react. Dog stopped in front of room 20 and without knocking, opened the door. Hikaru was leaning against the table, his yukata already undone on his torso showing his large tattoo of the dragon. I came for you. Hiki, is that Matcha? The dark-haired man just grunted as if the scream was the worst sound he ever heard. Lower your voice, dog, and I told you to stop calling me that by that ridiculous nickname. The blonde man didn't even seem to hear him, as he hurriedly approached the taller man and began to shake him, his hands frantically touching his neck and arms. Is your throat itchy? Can you breathe properly? Has the urticaria appeared anywhere? Dog's screams grew louder as he lifted the dark-haired man's sleeves and could already see some menacing red dots appearing on his arms. Wait, is he allergic? Why on earth did you take that? You know perfectly well that you're allergic. Dude, but also, simp! If you're allergic to it, just tell me. Hikaru pushed him away roughly with a huff as he stood up. Stop making such a fuss. I'm taking poisons more deadly than this crap. The blonde man looked like he could faint on the spot. You don't even like matcha. Do you have an EpiPen? Hikaru ignores his comments and leaves through the door while Dog follows him, still complaining. What truly matters isn't the memories themselves, but the people who live within them. They are the ones who make those memories priceless. Those are the words my older sister said when I told her about my realization. I guess she was right. One day you'll forget the streets of your childhood, the smell of the old shop around the corner of your house, the park you used to play, but you'll probably remember your mother's warm gaze as she welcomed you home. Or your friend's sad smile on the day you both graduated. But she never told me what I was supposed to do when I started forgetting those faces. Because those faces are beginning to fade away too, slipping through my fingers like sand. Time? Why do you insist on burying the yesterday beneath today? Why won't you let me remain where my happiest memories still exist? For some reason, that morning felt warmer than usual. Strange considering it had snowed last week. The sun bathing me in its intense rays put me in a bad mood. The beads of sweat trickled down my face and made vision difficult, and made me constantly clean my face with the back of my hand. I threw the cleaning products I had brought on the floor and huffed. I looked carefully at the old shabby walls surrounding me, then at the garden abandoned for who knows how long. I crouched down and ran a finger across the tatami, and just as I suspected, a thick layer of dust clung to my fingertip. I let out a quiet sigh as I stood up. I wouldn't normally be interested in doing a deep clean in this place. It wasn't worth it and I always had better things to do, but a clean space, a clear mind. Or that's what my older sister used to tell me when we were little. Although I'm starting to suspect she only said that to make me clean my room. The cleaning wouldn't hurt. Maybe it'd even help me relax. Something I needed these past few weeks after tons of work and classes. Out of habit, I smoothed out my worn-out blouse, riddled with holes. Its once bright blue that captivated me when I brought it had faded into a dull grey. How is that even possible? I made sure to put on the most worn-out clothes I owned before I started cleaning. Although come to think of it, most of my everyday clothes weren't much better off anyway. I rolled up my blouse sleeves past my elbows and tied around my waist an apron that I found buried in the back of my room. If there really was some evil spirit here, as everyone says, I hope it's ready to be driven out. Before anything else, I made sure to dust every corner of my hallway. I ran the duster through the cobwebs-filled corners, sending tiny spiders scurrying off in every direction. Every pillar, every tatami mat, and even the door got the same treatment until there wasn't a trace of dust left. A greyish pile of dirt quickly formed beside me. How on earth could one place accumulate so much dirt? By the time I finished, I was bent over with my hands on my knees, trying to catch my breath. I looked at my surroundings again, and although it wasn't spotless, it already looked far more presentable than it had when I started. At least now it resembled a place where a person actually lived. Suddenly, my gaze lands on the garden. Another day I should also cut the weeds, and are those footprints? I got a little closer and I realized they're actually footprints. They weren't mine because the footprints were slightly bigger than my feet. A shiver ran down my back. But who could have come here? Hikaru? I doubt that the girls would come. They're afraid of this area. It's Hikaru. He's a massive simp and he wants you. Could it have been the gardener? I took a few steps back and grabbed the cloth. Yeah, it must be the gardener. Even though something told me that it wasn't. I looked one more time at those footprints that led nowhere. No, Yinny, you're overthinking it. I dip a cloth into the bucket of water before wringing it out thoroughly. Then I ran the cloth over the tatami, revealing the light brown colour that had been hidden beneath years of dirt. As I ran the cloth across the floor and that brownness that peeked out more and more, a feeling of satisfaction filled my chest, or perhaps more like fulfillment. I slowly made my way down the corridor, pushing the damp cloth along the tatami in long, deliberate strokes. When I reached the end, I turned around and retraced my steps. At some point, I became so focused on following the lines of the tatami and cleaning them as thoroughly as I could that I completely lost track of my surroundings. So absorbed that I hadn't noticed that someone was watching me. It wasn't until my gaze landed on a pair of feet that I realized I wasn't alone. I slowly raised my head, and then I locked eyes with a familiar pair of jet black eyes that were staring at me. Mother. Why was she here? But then I noticed something. The eyes that usually held nothing but contempt for everyone were now wide open, like she was horrified by what she was seeing. What do you think you're doing? Her voice came out in a thread, almost like a whisper. Her question, but especially her tone, confused me. I am cleaning. Mother's face had gone white as a sheet as I let out the words. I got up from the floor and shook the dirt stuck to my pants. Eventually my eyes moved past her, and it was in that moment that I saw the two figures standing just behind her, although I have no idea how I hadn't noticed them sooner, considering they towered nearly 2 heads taller than Mother. The person on the right leaned slightly to the side, poking its head out from behind Mother. It was Dog. When he saw me, he smiled, making his brown eyes turn into crescents, and waved at me so enthusiastically I couldn't help but think of a little boy. His smile was full of amusement. Wait, if he was here, that means the other presence was... I slowly turned my head at the other person. Hikaru. Oh my god, is that his fit outside? Jesus Christ! What? Wow! Holy crap! Man! God, I went buried so deep that whoever pulls him out is gonna get crowned King Arthur. Jesus. To say I couldn't believe my eyes would be an understatement. For a moment, I even wondered if it was the same man I had been seeing those last nights. My god! He looks so good in like the black suit ensemble. His hair looks so sexy, pushback. For a moment, I even wondered if it was the same man I'd been seeing those last nights. He looked quite different, to say the least. His normally unruly, almost fluffy hair had been tamed with a smooth, subtle straightening. The strands of hair that usually fell over his face had been brushed back, leaving his eyes fully exposed. He wore with innate confidence an all-black suit that hugged his body like a second skin, very different from the loose yukata that he always wore. Perched on the bridge of his nose were glasses that made him look intellectual. Even the way he carried himself was different. I never thought about what Mr. Hikaru would look like outside the room. Not deeply, at least. I just assumed that he'd always have the same disheveled, carefree appearance. But looking at him now, I realized I'd only ever known one side of him. I want to know all sides of him, if you know what I mean. To me, he had simply been the man who had visited the room, and my most frequent client. But in reality, he was much more than that. Yes, emphasis on much more, Jesus. It wasn't until Mother cleared her throat pointedly that I realized I'd been staring at him, quietly taking in his unexpected new appearance. I strategically ignored making eye contact with her, although her expression said it all. What are you doing standing there? Greet him! I gave a slight bow to the both of them. Good morning, Sir Hikaru. Sir Dog? Mr. Hikaru made a small gesture for me to straighten up, while Dog nodded approvingly. An awkward silence settled over the hallway. Why wasn't anyone saying anything? And why was Mother bringing them precisely to this area? I looked at Mr. Hikaru to see if our feelings were mutual, but that's when I caught him looking at me. No wait, not me, but lower. I frowned and followed his gaze. Oh, that's when I understood why Mother went so pale when she saw me. And Dog had that mischievous grin from ear to ear the whole time. My blouse was torn. My trousers were stained with grime after an hour of cleaning, and my hair was disheveled that I could feel some strands of hair stuck to the side of my face. I must have looked like a complete mess. Out of all days, why did they come here today? I began to feel the unpleasant sensation of being exposed. Exposed. An outsider would have laughed at the use of that word. You're exaggerating, but they'll never understand what it's like to work in a profession where your clients never get to see the real you, because all you ever show them is the person they're meant to see. Yeah, like why did my mom bring him here? This is like my room. Not Yinny, but Yinny. I mean, that's supposed to be my geisha name, but you know, I was uncreative and put my name for both. That detail of my life doesn't bother me. After all, she is as much a part of me as Yinny is. It's just that watching their faces twist, the moment they catch a glimpse of the other you, the most human one, it's humiliating. I hadn't realized I'd been avoiding Mr. Hikaru's gaze, afraid of seeing the very expression I dreaded all along. With an inward sigh, I finally forced myself to look at him, but I was surprised to find the same impassive expression he always wore. There wasn't the slightest twitch of disgust on his face. Nothing, no hint of revulsion, no disappointment. Not a single crack in that unreadable facade of his. It's as if he couldn't care less about how I looked in that moment. And for the first time since I met him, I was grateful I couldn't read him. May I ask what brings you here, Mother? I was showing Mr. Hikaru and his companion around the house since he mentioned he was curious about the layout of the house. A very interesting layout. Mother lets out a laugh that sounds almost forced, as if she had to drag it from the depths of her chest. And we just happened to be passing by to give you a gift. And this time Dog spoke up, abruptly cutting Mother off as he lifted a small chest that was tucked under his arm all this time. A gift for me. For tonight. Oh, right, the dinner. Dog handed me the chest. The weight sank into my arms far faster than I expected. I was surprised by how heavy it was, considering how effortlessly he'd been carrying it. It was slipping from my grasp. But then, I felt a pair of cold hands wrap around mine as I steadied the chest. I'll steady his chest. I froze. Looks like you can't handle anything heavy. Actually, yes, I can absolutely handle something heavy. You wanna see? Grasped firmly. I blinked once, twice. I'd never been this close to him before. So close that I could make out every shade of blue swimming in his irises. Pull away. Instinctively, almost as if his touch burned me. How ironic. I pulled away, taking a few steps back. Did I overreact? In the background, I could hear Dog struggling to hold back his laughter. That rascal! But it wasn't my fault he grabbed my hands without warning. But to my surprise, I saw the corners of his lips curl up before my reaction. You know what I'm kind of noticing here? I noticed that when you do stuff that doesn't immediately flirt with him and lean in towards him, he gets really amused. If you don't indulge him and fall at his feet and flirt with him, and instead pull away or match him, he gets really excited like some freak, a sexy freak. But to my surprise, I saw the corners of his lips curl up before my reaction. Do you find me that repulsive? You recoiled as if a stray dog had touched you. No, it's just that you caught me off guard. Your face says otherwise. Oh, shut up, dog. And Mr. Hikaru only kept smiling like it was something funny. Mother seemed to be watching some play unfold before her. My gaze then drifted to the chest resting in my hands. It was a semicircular wooden chest, its smooth surface coated in a deep crimson lacquer. Intricate carvings adorned its edges. Both the lock and the hinges were made of gold, as was the large bonsai motif that stretched across the entire front of the chest. I had a slight impression that it was worth more than my annual minimum wage. Is it really alright for me to accept such a valuable gift? Once a gift is given, you can't give it back. Besides, I wouldn't have brought it if I didn't want you to have it. He replied as though it were the most obvious thing in the world, and I couldn't help but smile to myself. Instinctively, I pulled the chest closer against myself. Thank you. I'll appreciate it deeply. I'll appreciate him deeply. And that's all. We'll pick you up at 9 tonight. Be ready by then. And before I could start to reply to something, Dog flashed me a playful wink and the two of them started to leave. Mother, however, didn't follow them. She remained by my side, waiting until the sound of their footsteps had completely faded. She kept her eyes fixed on the corridor before speaking. Yinny, do you remember the first thing I told you the moment you set foot in this place? Of course I remember. You never miss an opportunity to remind me. Don't become attached to them. She nodded curtly. Mother, for some reason, looked more serious in that moment. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her gripping her cane so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Was she angry? Mother, if you're worried that I'm getting too close to Mr. Hikaru, you don't have to be. I haven't grown attached to him. She gave me a humorless chuckle. The problem isn't you growing attached. It's him growing attached to you. Yeah, I mean, that's already happened. And when a man grows deeply attached to someone, well, they often forget where to draw the line. Although I must say I'm surprised he's been so considerate all this time. But what worries me most is how oblivious you are to all this. She rapped me on the forehead with her knuckles and clicked her tongue. I let out a groan as I stroked my forehead. Is there anything inside that head of yours? I could have sworn I was sharper at your age. She murmured as she shook her head disapprovingly. Hey! What was that all about? I didn't understand a single thing she was talking about. The confused look on my face only made her head shake more firmly. Clearly, wit is not among your strengths. She sighed and turned away. Ignorance can be a blessing, but it can become your downfall too, and then becoming too exhausting to deal with. The hairs on my arms were standing on end as I watched her walk away, while her words lingered in my mind. I looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection stared back at me intently. My hand brushed against the fabric I was wearing, smooth and delicate. The kimono that was inside the chest was breathtaking, to say the least. It had a pale yellow gradient that became more intense as it traveled through the fabric. It had handmade embroidery on the fabric of lotus flowers and colorful koi fish that created a striking contrast with the main color. The kimono wasn't very complicated when it came to design. I would even say it was simple, but it was that kind of simplicity that attracted people. It was a bit more colorful than I would normally wear. My hair, now adorned with ornaments once more, almost seemed to shimmer on its own. It had been a long time since I'd last worn anything in my hair. Ooh, I am pretty. It was truly a thoughtful gift from him. How long has it been since I last touched fabric like this? Or ornaments this bright? I couldn't take my eyes off my reflection. I glanced sideways at the digital clock on my bedside table. It would soon strike 9. There wasn't much time left. I adjusted one of the ornaments in my hair, straightened the collar of my kimono, and took one last look around the room. Then I quietly stepped outside, and the chill air of the night hit me. That night it was cold and the streets were eerily quiet, as if it were a ghost town and not one where people lived. But even though the street was almost dark with not a single street lamp working, I could see Mr. Hikaru just by scanning the street for 2 seconds. He was leaning against a black car, cigarette resting between his fingers, which he was trying to light with a lighter that clearly wasn't working. An involuntary laugh fills my chest. The impatient movements he was making with the lighter stopped instantly when he heard me. He turned his head so quickly I was afraid he would break his neck. His furrowed brows lifted when he saw me and then returned to their usual expression. He stops leaning against the car, walking towards me while throwing the cigarette to the ground, emerging from the shadows. Do you think when he emerges from the shadows, because his chest is so big, that's the first thing that you see poking out of the shadows first? He then stood in front of me. Then it was my turn to raise my eyebrows slightly and very subtly impressed by what I noticed. Hello. He has shaved his beard. Oh my god. Oh, good god. I'm gonna be honest, facial hair is like not my favorite. It's not usually something I go for, but something about Hikaru with the facial hair is so pretty. But then Hikaru without the facial hair still makes me just go like, wow. And you look much younger now. Even younger than me. It seems that a beard could add 10 years to your appearance or take 10 years off. Laughing at me, huh? I wouldn't dare, Mr. Hikaru. Yes I would. I'm quite sure I heard a laugh. Yeah, you wanna hear something else? You wanna hear a moan? It must be some ghost that is wandering around here. A ghost dressed in a yellow kimono, maybe. He started walking towards the car before I could answer. You look good, by the way. Direct and unashamed, his usual tone. I'm quite used to it at this point. I'm asking Dog for advice on what to get you have been worthwhile. You asked Dog. He's the one who knows the most about these things. He was a sales clerk at a high-end fashion boutique a few years ago. As I approached the car, I noticed his eyes drifting towards my hair, his expression changing slightly. He raised his hand and without warning slowly extracted a metal pendant hairpin from my hair and inspected it. My hand instinctively went up to my hair, surprised by the sudden movement. I don't remember giving you this in the chest. It's an ornament. I thought that it would complement the others. He examined it closely before putting it in his pocket. Confiscated. Excuse me? Huh? I gave you the chest so you wouldn't wear anything else. You look good in what you're wearing anyway. You don't need anything else. Excuse me? The way he said it so casually without hesitation made me wonder if I had misheard. But seeing how the ornament peeked out from between his pocket and from his expression, it seemed as though he was serious. What he had just done was so childish. He looked annoyed. So unlike him, if I dared say so. Seeing that his decision was unchangeable, I sighed inwardly and got into the car, reminding myself to retrieve my hairpin later. The moment I stepped inside, I paused. A bar. Of all the places I had imagined, this had not been one of them, but I must admit that the atmosphere wasn't bad. The bar was quiet, with jazz music playing softly in the background and a glow emanating from behind the counter. It is a very pretty bar. There weren't many people here either. Just the bartender, a man slumped over the bar, a couple and two men who seemed to be discussing something. The only ones who looked at us were the couple who quickly went to their business and the bartender, who gave Hikaru a knowing look which he quickly returned with a curt nod. Choose where you want to sit. I would prefer it if you chose. I don't care. If he insisted, I looked around the place. The table beside the couple was near the stage, where jazz was playing from the speaker. Although sitting at the bar didn't sound so bad either, there was good lighting. I should choose... sit beside the couple. In that case, let's sit here. He looked at the spot I was pointing to, which was closest to the stage. And then without saying anything, he came closer and pushed the chair back slightly so I could sit down. The couple that was eating stopped for a moment to glance at him. Look at him with surprise. I didn't exactly know why I was surprised. Maybe because he didn't seem like the kind of man who would make those gestures. Don't look at me with so much surprise. It's insulting. And seeing him smile was pretty rare. And when he did it, it was either because I said something that amused him or because he found me amusing. I sat down in the chair he was signaling. He then sat in front of me and crossed his legs, resting his elbow on the armrest of the chair. I envied a little how easily he seemed to blend in with the surroundings. Two older sisters. And they've always forced me to do these gestures, so I'm used to it by now. This time I was surprised, but because it was him who started talking a little bit about his private life. Over time, we got to know each other. I realized that he didn't really like to talk about his private life, but on the rare occasions that he did, I listened to him carefully. I think it's an instinct we all have when someone who seems quite mysterious to you is talking about themselves. And so Hikaru is definitely one of the most intriguing clients I've known for a long while. Now I wonder what his sisters are like. Will they be like him? Or will they be completely different? My sister and I, when we were little, were pretty different, but as we grew up, our ways and thoughts started to align. It must be fun to have two older sisters. Not really. They're a constant menace. They never shut up. It always seems like they have something to say about anything. They're exhausting even though they're older than me. I wasn't exaggerating when I said that was the longest sentence Mr. Hikaru had ever said. But you know, when you usually have so much to say about someone, it means you are close. Or you know them well enough. Now I was even more curious, although I knew I should suppress my curiosity. Are you the only son in your family? Yes, I'm the only son of the family. That's also why I'm the only heir of the family business. Only son, huh? He must have been very spoiled in his life. To be honest, I didn't think there would be a place like that inside this building. I mean, we started walking down an alley that didn't look very charming, and the building from outside looked like it was about to fall apart. The banner with the bar's name too, but the inside was different. Bright lamps and fully equipped stage, comfy armchairs. My eyes landed on Hikaru, who was flipping through the menu. He totally fit in that place. In fact, he seemed more comfortable there, even in that room 20. It was a curious contrast. While in room 20 he was a sloppy, bored man who didn't care about how much he looked, I sure do like it when he's sloppy. The Mr. Hikaru I had in front of me now was the complete opposite. They're both hot, although both parts of him still had the coldness and the air of everything sliding off him that characterized him. Do you come here often? He didn't look up from the menu. Yes, I usually come alone when I need a break from work. I guess that's why Mako has been staring at us since we came in. Mako, he nodded behind me. I turned my head and saw how the bartender that Mr. Hikaru had greeted was staring at us intently while holding a half-poured cocktail in his hand. When he saw that I had caught him red-handed, his face turned an almost alarming shade of red, and smiled nervously at me before running to hide in what I assume was a back storage room. I'd never seen anyone have so many facial expressions change in seconds. Don't pay too much attention to him, he's always been like that. You can't hide it. Is it that unusual for you to come with someone? I've only brought 3 people to this place. One of my older sisters, dog, and you right now. Me. I want to have a date with you, so I thought I should bring you to the most decent place I knew. Also, I don't like crowded places. Find them tedious. And those places are known enough that few people come. Indirectly, he made me look around, and the several empty tables proved his point. That's when he handed me the menu. There was nothing eccentric, as I had thought. In fact, there were quite ordinary dishes that you could find anywhere. The menu offered a variety of Japanese dishes, although apparently also from other countries. There was hot broth ramen, chicken and vegetable yakitori, tempura, fresh sashimi, and small plates meant for sharing, along with various sides and drinks, mostly alcoholic. No dish seemed very nice with the color of my kimono, or my makeup either. I want tempura. Marco, stop hiding and come take the order. Just when I thought the poor guy couldn't get any redder, he came out of his little hiding spot, with his face looking like a red traffic light. He stumbled over to me and pulled the notebook out of the pocket of his waist apron. Good evening, what would you like to order? The boy started writing in the notebook while Hikaru was listing the dishes, but when I thought he was going to go hide again in his hiding spot, he stood there looking at me in a not very subtle way, as if he were confirming something. Sorry for what I'm going to ask, but are you a geisha? Isn't it quite obvious? We both chose to ignore his comment. I nodded. It's the first time I've seen one. He scratched the back of his neck, now less nervously. I've seen some geisha in cultural magazines, but this is the first time I've seen one in person. And you look just like them. He began to chatter and my smile kept getting wider. When was the last time someone spoke to me like that? Can I ask you something? Before I could say yes or no, he started talking. Is that your real skin? I stretched out my hand to him so he could see the answer for himself. I almost saw Hikaru rolling his eyes. Oh, so it's makeup. And how long did it take you to become a geisha? He's so sweet. About 4 years. It's a tough path, and that's a long time. With every question, he started getting a little closer to me. Excitement flashed in his eyes like stars. I don't think he means any harm. I think he's just excited. And how many hours a day do you have to... Mako. Mr. Hikaru's voice cut him off like a dagger through his words. But unlike how it sounded all night, it had a sharper edge. It wasn't the usual tone he used. Mako froze. Sorry, I got carried away. His expression changed to one of embarrassment as he realized he was invading my personal space, and he quickly stepped back 3 paces. I'll bring the food as fast as possible. Thanks for answering my questions, miss. Tell him your name. Yinny. He stopped abruptly and he turned his head, surprised. Wait, so you're the woman Hikaru talked about? What? Mako. What? I looked at Hikaru, who was giving Mako a death stare. Oh no. I'm going now. He disappeared through the door. I looked again at Hikaru. He just looked back at me with the same expression as always. But I saw how he stayed unusually still. So, talking about me, you both seem close, Mr. Hikaru. I tried to change the topic to avoid making him close off. We're not. We just happened to run into each other some nights at the bar. I mean, I think you're pretty tolerant of him. He leaned back, a bit more in his chair, uncrossing his legs and interlacing his fingers, looking somewhat weary. He's just like my sister. I raised my eyebrow, unable to help it. Just like your sister? You mean he's my nephew. That's why he's so tolerant. The difference in their attitudes have made me rule out any possibility of relation between them. We don't look alike at all, do we? No, actually, you don't. I've been told that several times. I hardly look like anyone in my family. His lips tightened slightly, and the tapping he was doing on the armrest stopped, except I say the one I resemble most is my father. From his expression, something tells me he doesn't like being compared to him. But yes, it's quite curious considering that my nephew and I are only 5 years apart. Wait, what? Only 5 years difference, but Mako seems very young. Surprised? Don't be surprised again, I'm telling you, it's insulting. I think you like it when I'm surprised. But yes, I'm not as old as you thought. He ran his hand through his hair to push back some of the strands that were starting to fall across his face. Mako's 19, you guess now. My mind started working quickly. 24. You know how to do basic maths. Yes! I ignored his mocking comment. He was almost the same age as me. It was something I didn't expect. I don't know, from his usual appearance, I took it for granted that he was a man in his 30s or maybe in his 40s who took very good care of himself. I thought he was like 35. But looking at him more intently, I realized that it's true that he looked more my age. I guess it was the way he acted that made him look older. Or maybe because those few grey hairs sticking out of his head. From stress, or did he dye them? I can see what you're looking at. You could be more subtle, brewer. I quickly looked away when I realized that he noticed I was looking at his hair. My bad, but seeing that Mr. Hikaru was engaged in the conversation, I had to take advantage to keep him going. When you have to take the chance to try and understand the book that you've been trying to grasp, you take it. Yeah, I'll grasp him. And talk about what his nephew said. You heard him. So he wasn't gonna deny it, huh? Were you saying good things about me or bad things? My tone was teasing on purpose. I didn't talk much about you. I said you were more interesting than you seemed at first. Is that a compliment? It is. What a strange way to give a compliment. I'm not especially good at giving them. I'd already noticed that. Hikaru smiled before starting to run his fingers over the lamp on the table. I noticed some deep cuts on the palms of his hands. Many times I wondered how and where those cuts were made next to the big cut that went through his eye. Don't worry. Never good impression of you. The food is ready. I also want to go back and ask the other questions too. Talk about his last trip. How was the trip to Harajuku that you mentioned recently? Boring, like all business trips. He leaned on the table, resting his elbow while adjusting his glasses. Too many kids. It's normal. Harajuku is one of the main hangout spots for teenagers these days. I remember when I was younger, I even went to Takeshita Dori, the street full of clothing and accessory shops. I haven't been there in like 2 years. Don't tell me that you... I was a punk in my adolescence. It sounded a bit ridiculous to say it out loud. I was. Mr. Hikaru blinked, and then looked me up and down. And then he burst out laughing. He laughed with all his heart to the point of throwing his head back. Oh, cute. But instead of being offended, I just kept watching him laugh. I think it was the first time I've ever seen him laugh like that. Oh, I'm sorry, I just couldn't have imagined it. He shook his head as if what I had told him was just the funniest thing in the world. Believe me, many of us who are geishas today were completely different in our teenage years. I can see that, yes. I guess I won't be able to stop thinking about what you just told me every time I see a punk on the street. How considerate of you. His laugh gradually loosened, though he still seemed amused. I thought of buying you something while I was in Harajuku. Really? Harajuku crepes. I didn't get to buy them because I forgot. I do like crepes, especially from Santa Monica Crepes. Next time I'm there, I'll get them. Your favorites, right? Just hearing the name transported me back to those times when I still lived near that area and used to go every afternoon to try those typical crepes. Though to be honest, I don't remember when I mentioned that they were my favorite. Probably slipped out during one of our many chats in the past few months, or maybe he stalked you and found out. Food is ready. Alright, one last question. Talk about the painting you mentioned. So in the end, did you manage to find that painting you were looking for so much? No, I'm still looking for it. Are you going to tell me what the painting is about? When I have it, I'll show it to you personally. Oh. Is it by some famous painter? He shook his head slightly. It's a work by a little-known painter. His work barely survived the time, and as far as I know, only a few pieces remain in his private collections that I haven't been able to find yet. He mainly painted during the interwar period and had a very particular way of using light. He also had the habit of hiding small details in the shadows. Objects and things you wouldn't notice unless you knew where to look. And there it was. The small cult that was always hidden in him. It was a side that I found adorable. The way he talked about something that was obviously his passion. Art, cinema, and culture. He had such an extensive knowledge in each of those areas that it was hard to keep up even for a geisha with vast knowledge. He sighed. I've been searching for about 10 months. You're very tenacious. Art is the only pleasure in my life that I refuse to give up. What about me? He looked at me in the eyes. I just need that painting to complete my little collection. Someday I'll show you. It's my pride. I'm sure you have some very interesting pieces. You have very exquisite taste in art. I'm sure you have some very beautiful pieces. Mr. Hikaru's eyes widened momentarily, as if he had expected anything except that. And then his cheeks blushed a gentle but noticeable pink. Oh, he's so cute. He was blushing. His eyes quickly looked somewhere else. I wonder how far down he blushes. I never imagined he would have that expression on his face. Don't say things like that. Oh, he's so cute. Oh, I love the gap away, like the big scary Yakuza leader just blushing and whispering. I blinked like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The food is ready. Marco's singing voice interrupts us. Marco brought several plates, cutlery, and the drinks with great agility. When he was putting the plates away, I paid more attention to him. And that's when I noticed he had a certain resemblance to Hikaru in terms of jaw and eyes. He was like a more youthful and gentle version of Mr. Hikaru. Thank you, Marco. You're so welcome, Yini. Talk with more respect. She's older than you. Oh, I don't mind, Sir Hikaru. I'm not that old anyway. At my comment, Marco stuck out his tongue to Hikaru. That's so cute. You little. Marco laughed mischievously as he got back behind the counter like it would save him from Mr. Hikaru. It was entertaining to see him getting riled up. My gaze dropped to my plate, and inevitably I felt like I was starting to salivate. Marco had strategically placed the breaded shrimp with a lively and crisp orange color with a homemade sauce. I was eager to hear the satisfying crunch the shrimp would make when I sank my teeth into it. Trying to resist the temptation to eat, my gaze turned to Hikaru's plate instead. It was a dish I'd never seen before. Wait, what is that? I want to look that up. I don't know what kind of dish it is, but it looks really interesting. I'm going to add this on my list of things to try. It's pork with spices. It's a typical dish from my mother's homeland. He cut a piece and handed it to me. Try it. I accepted while muttering a little thank you, although after a few seconds I felt embarrassed by my enthusiasm. I looked at the pork piece. It was juicy with a pretty golden brown. I took a bite, and then an explosion of flavors burst in my mouth. The pork and the sour taste of the pickle made a smooth and delicious mix, but then came the burn. It was light at first, but then started to intensify in my throat after swallowing it. The gentle flavor from before was replaced by flames. The heat increased and I felt my eyes start to water from the spiciness. Why didn't you tell me it was like properly chili spice? I thought you meant spices like cumin and stuff. So Hikaru looked at me with one eyebrow raised. You don't seem very tolerant to spice. I start coughing lightly. Not me, I love spice. How could it be this spicy? Was I really that intolerant to spicy food? I reached out my hand for the water. Hikaru, water, please. Mr. Hikaru, who was about to give me a glass of water, stopped. I blinked, confused. You call me Hikaru? Yes? He pulled his hand back, keeping me from reaching the water. I like it when you call me without the mister in front. But what? Okay, this is not the time, I'm dying. He smiled mockingly. I'll give you the water if you call me that from now on. But how could he be so childish? Was he teasing me? I tried to stay calm. Although between the burning feeling that made the heat run through my whole body and the uncomfortable kimono, it was difficult. Yes, Hikaru. Hikaru smiled like a damn yokai. Maybe the yokai dog mentioned last night was him and then handed me the water. What a menace! I took a long sip and the water felt like heaven. Like I had crossed the Sanzu River and came back. He rested his elbow on the table and watched me, amused. If I had known that for a little bit of spice he would stop calling me sir, I would have done it much earlier. He was definitely mocking me. Almost the rest of the night went by normally. After eating, we drank a little sake and realized that he had extraordinary tolerance. Thanks to my father, he said. As time went by, more relaxed and loose words came out of my mouth without me realizing it. Sometimes I would even joke too much or say something that would make my etiquette teacher faint. It got to a point where I even forgot I was on a date with a client. I didn't know if it was because of the last bar's atmosphere or Hikaru, who seemed to have loosened up a bit more too. The two of us had fallen silent after a surprisingly long conversation about the history of the sake. We were both enjoying the melodic jazz in the background. Although, well, I wasn't sure if Hikaru was really enjoying it, considering he had the same expression as always. He could be the type of person who would drive any chef crazy if he desired to be a food critic. But at the moment, the piece was interrupted by some voices. I turned my head slightly. It was a couple at the next table, and they seemed to be having an argument that was escalating. Oh, I told you, it's not what you think. Then what is this? The man pointed accusingly at the phone screen he was holding. I don't have to explain everything I do to you. That would have been before, but after what you did, do you expect me to just trust you? The girl pressed her lips together, her eyes full of helplessness. And for a moment our gazes met. She quickly averted her eyes. I don't want to argue here. No, let's sort it out here and now. The boy's tone kept getting louder. The girl seemed increasingly uncomfortable. Please, lower your voice, we're in a public place. Don't tell me what to do. Or are you afraid they'll see who you really are? He slammed the table in rage, making the girl flinch in her seat. I stood up almost on impulse. The Hikaru grabbed my wrist. What are you gonna do? I looked at him almost incredulous at this question. Intervene! It's none of your business. Can't you see that the girl's getting scared? I don't see it, they're just arguing, right? It's normal between couples. I was left speechless. I looked back at the girl. Although she seemed to be trying to stay strong, her watering eyes betrayed her. And then I looked at Hikaru again. In his gaze, I didn't see malice or fear of getting involved in someone else's business. Instead, there was confusion. Confusion as if he didn't understand why I was so upset about something that wasn't our concern. As if he couldn't understand it. Hikaru, this is important. The argument ended shortly after. I didn't know what had happened between them, but the girl ended up getting up and leaving alone. The man stayed seated. Shortly after, we left too, saying goodbye to Mako. There were people everywhere. Groups of young people walking in both directions. Workers returning from their jobs and families. Nothing unusual considering it was a rush hour for nightlife. To get to the car, we had to pass through the huge crowd. I tried moving forward, but someone came in front of me and made me stop. And suddenly Hikaru grabbed my arm and gently pulled me closer. But instead of letting go, he slid his hand down my lower back. Whoa, follow me. We don't want the crowd to swallow you up. So I'll swallow him up, he said. And then he started making his way through the people. Even with the layers of the kimono, I still felt his cold hand passing through me. The car parked in front of the Okiya. I got out. The ride was uncomfortable. I kept thinking about what happened at the bar. I didn't know whether to feel angry or frustrated with him. I sighed to myself as the night wind messed up my hair. Hikaru also got out of the car. Thanks for dinner. I gave a small smile. He nodded as he took out his cigarette pack. We looked at each other in silence. Those blue eyes are darker than ever, darker than the sky above us. Good night, Hikaru. I gave him a small bow as a farewell and started heading back. I don't understand many things. A sharp voice went straight through my bones. I didn't turn around, but I kept listening. Things that are obvious to others. Good night. Raw. After the date, Kabukicho was what they call lively. Neon lights and crowds full of people, nightlife activities. I leaned against the wall and inhaled the cigarette I had in my hand, while with the other I balanced some tiny steel balls between my fingers. Man, I remember this like street sign in Kabukicho. Also, these backgrounds are really pretty. My head hurt from not having smoked opium for a whole day. Hiki, you can't smoke outside. I completely ignored that unbearable voice. Oh yeah, this is from Hikaru's POV. Dog stood in front of me with an amused smile that I could see through my squinted eyes. Did you lose a pachinko again? He pointed at the balls between my fingers. Shut up, dog. I told you I had better luck than you in that shit. His gaze shifted to my other hand. Didn't you say you quit smoking? Said I quit the pipe, never said I quit tobacco. He fell silent when I looked at him. Although he still had that smile on his face that was telling me he was holding back from saying another brainless comment. How's the date? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I didn't know anything about what I was feeling or what I myself had been doing those last few months. I didn't know why I was going to visit her every week, or why I felt the need to know every detail about her. Dog once said that it could be that I liked her. If before I didn't like her, neither I will now. There were times I felt the need to see her when she was far away, but other times I didn't want to see her at all. Other times I wanted to run my fingers over that face and smudge that white makeup, or run them through that silky hair to see if it was her real hair. But there were a few times where I just wanted to excuse me? Where I just wanted to strangle her with my own bare hands and make those feelings stop, though those were only passing thoughts. Should I kill her? Or should I keep her by my side like I've been doing these past few months? I don't want to die, excuse me? My thoughts were interrupted when Dog hit my chest with the umbrella he was carrying, pointing at the drops that had started falling from the sky. It's raining. I had to go and collect the old man's debt from that brothel he's been putting off for a month. The cold from the rain was already seeping into my bones, but there was a refreshing feeling that would later help me stay awake for the rest of the night. I took another drag of my cigarette to ease the throbbing in my temple while I grabbed the umbrella. I walked over to the car, where 2 other men were leaning against. What would the lady say about you if she knew that you were a gangster, capable of beating someone up to death? She'd never know. You ever totally fooled, Hiki? To get closer to Yinny, I had to adopt parts of the attitudes I saw in my sister. Say and react like they would. Despicable. That's what she would say if she knew. But she doesn't know, does she? And we'll keep it that way. She won't leave. Not again. Again? Wait, do I know him? Stop talking bullshit and let's get to work. Oh my god, Jesus Christ. Also, Dog is so cute. Look at him. Good god, is everybody in this gang like handsome? What the hell? Dog chuckled while he signaled to the other 2 to follow. Oh god, the art is so pretty in this. Yeah. Whatever you say, Iki. Thank you for playing the demo. See you soon. Hikaru will miss you in the meanwhile. I'll miss him. He's so gorgeous. I do want to go back though, because there is another scene that we can get if we pick to sit next to the man instead of the couple. So let's do that. Alright, we're back here. Let's sit at the bar. In that case, let's sit there if you don't mind. Hikaru seemed to judge my choice, probably for the drunk man. You sure? I nodded. We'll be closer from the bar. He approached me to the counter and then took the seat furthest from the drunkard, gesturing for me to sit with his hand. Alright, and then we'll skip forward to the scene that we missed. And this is where the scene diverges. When Hikaru was about to pay, his phone started vibrating. He took out his phone out of his jacket and then looked at me. I'm gonna take this call. I barely nodded and he was already gone through the door. I sat up at the bar and waited for him. I looked at my nails, looked at the clock hanging in the bar. Marco came to chat with me for a few minutes until he went back to attend the couple. 5 minutes. 10. 15. I started to get more exasperated inside. Oh no. And then I heard the drunken man from the side get back up for the first time since we entered. Oh no. He let out a guttural sound, typical of someone who's drunk until their eyes roll back to reality. He just stared at a blank spot for a whole minute. I didn't even glance in his direction. I knew what usually happened when you made eye contact with a drunk man, but it seemed like it didn't work because he still turned towards me, tried to pretend I was interested in the bottles decorating the bar, and he slowly started moving towards me. I looked at the door praying Hikaru would come back. Hey, gorgeous. What are you doing alone in the bar? None of your beeswax. You look really pale, huh? You feeling sick? Want me to walk you home? No. I tried to force a smile. No thanks. Seeing that I wasn't even looking at him, it seemed to annoy him. Hey, I'm over here, not there. That disgusting smell of alcohol hit my face in a nauseating way. I wanted to vomit. He put one hand on my shoulder, while with the other he tried to grab my chin to pull my face towards him. Ew! Sir, I'm not interested. He just laughed. They don't say that. Ew! He tried to turn my face once more, his body getting closer and closer to mine. Come on, we'll have fun. He had no intention of stopping. Over the years, I met 2 types of people when they're drunk. The first one was the kind of person who would soften up with alcohol and didn't hurt anyone. Second type of drunk was the one who turned into an idiot and felt entitled to put their hands on you. The last type normally needed someone to hit them to calm them down. And he clearly was the last type of drunk. Let's slap him first. Before he managed to slap me, I gave him one with enough force to make his face spin, so strong and echoed throughout the bar. Uh-oh. The man stood completely still, his grip on my shoulder loosening. And then I finally looked him in the face. Wait, that face, I knew it. Daichi! Hey, our first customer! As if saying that name, I flipped some switch on the man. He turned his head towards me at an inhuman speed. I was speechless, but I didn't seem to be the only one surprised. He was too, because it looked like that slap had woken him up from the effects of the alcohol and his eyes were clear now, although I didn't know if it was from the alcohol or if they were tears from the slap. Yinny! We both took a few steps back. The first to react was him, who made a deep bow of almost 80 degrees. I'm so sorry. I blinked. He seemed genuinely remorseful. I looked towards the door where it seemed Hikaru still wouldn't return soon, then I looked back at him. Are you okay? No. The question is if you were okay. I'm sorry, I don't know what just happened to me. I should stop drinking. Slowly he sat in the chair next to me, lost. I'm so sorry, really, I'll make it up to you. He tightly closes his eyes and lets out a long sigh. That's when I realized that he seemed to have aged a lot since the last time we'd seen each other. Daichi was an old client of mine, one of the first I ever had who stayed loyal to me since I started as a geisha. We became so close that sometimes I broke the unwritten rules as an artist and we would go and hang out like the two friends we were rather than just acquaintances. But he stopped coming one day, and that was already 2 months ago. Coincides with the time that Hikaru started showing up, huh? Interesting. I wonder why. I mean, Hikaru couldn't have possibly done something to him, right? That was already 2 months ago. I sat down with him. When he saw I didn't run away from him like anyone else probably would, he collapsed, tears pouring from his eyes. I stayed silent and just looked at him. The adrenaline rush I felt a few seconds ago faded as quickly as it came. He tried to sniff his nose while crying even more. I lost my job months ago. I no longer have any source of income and survive on my savings. His gaze drifted to the glasses that were stacked around him. I inevitably started to fall into that. My house, my car, and even my dog had been taken from me. That's so sad. I wonder why dog is in italics though. Are we talking about an actual pet dog or are we talking about dog as in Hikaru's right-hand man dog? Daichi dug his fingers into his hair. He looked like he was about to collapse. I mean, dog seems to have been working for Hikaru a lot longer than a couple of months, so I don't think so. My heart broke a little. And the last time I saw Daichi was when he promised to come back with a very important contract. After that, he would become my danna, my sponsor. But seeing him like that, now I understood why he suddenly disappeared. He sniffled his nose again. Sorry, I think this is the last thing you want to hear from someone who had been harassing you 10 minutes ago. He lets out a weak laugh and looks at me and takes my hand gently. But it seems like things are going well for you. I've been trying to schedule a time with you these past few months, but it seems like you're always fully booked. What did he mean? These past few months my schedule has been mostly empty. Actually, the only person I've been seeing all this time has been Hikaru. I almost screamed when Hikaru suddenly appeared behind me. Daichi had the same reaction as me, letting go of my hand abruptly. Although he had his usual impassive expression, his eyes had a strange gleam. Hikaru? It was then when Daichi looked at him, noticing the new presence. He went even paler if that were humanly possible. Daichi tried to get up from the seat, though he failed miserably. Of course, you must be working right now. His gaze returned to my hair and clothes. He tried to speak, but it seemed like words wouldn't come out. He absolutely knows who Hikaru is. His gaze kept returning to Hikaru. Sorry for interrupting. Daichi got off the chair and bowed again to me and then to Hikaru. I'll make it up to you the next time we meet. Daichi quickly pulled several crumpled bills from his pocket and threw them onto the bar counter. Then he ran out the door Hikaru had come from. Everything happened so fast I hadn't been able to process it yet. But what stayed in my head was one of his last phrases. I've been trying to schedule a time with you these past few months, but it seems like you're always fully booked. Suspicious. And that was impossible because I knew I had free time for almost the entire week the past few months. My instinct made my gaze turn to Hikaru for the first time since I had entered. He returned my look. Who was he? Daichi? He was a former client. Apparently he went bankrupt. What a shame. Was he being sarcastic? Hikaru sighed to himself and then I reached. Like he was going to touch my face. But then he realized what he was going to do and stopped me there. We should go now. Hikaru insisted on taking me home, even though I told him several times that the streets are safe at that hour. He parked the car near the Okiya. Thank you for the dinner. I could not but feel exasperated by his non-verbal response. When I was about to get out of the car, I stopped remembering something. And the hairpin. I'll keep it as a memento of tonight. Hey, my hairpin! His hand went into the pocket where he kept the hairpin he stole from me at the beginning of the date. But I'll give you another the next time we see each other. So let me keep it. His tone showed that I didn't have any other choice. Besides, he was already putting it in the other pocket so I couldn't reach it. I couldn't help but sigh. Spoiled. He only smiled, amused. Good night, Yini. Good night, Hikaru. After the date, kabukicho was what they call lively. Alright. Well, this is the final scene that we get again with Dog, so I want to go back. I want to come back to here and choose the other option, which is to kick him. I tried to lift my leg to kick him. My leg could barely lift because the kimono was binding my legs. Crap, closed my eyes tightly waiting for the impact to come to my face, but it never came. My eyes flew open when I realized that the scream wasn't mine. And that's when I saw Hikaru behind the man holding his wrist with a face full of rage. Oh my god. Those deep, calm blue eyes like the depths of the ocean were now splashing and shining like waves at midnight. They were filled with rage. Pure rage. What do you think you're doing? Hikaru's grip grew tighter and tighter. The man writhed on the spot, unable to break free. Mako gasped and quickly approached Hikaru, and they both began dragging the screaming man out of the bar. I watched blinking and slowly sank back into my seat. Hikaru came back later. Neither of us said anything and I was thankful for that. On the way home my heart kept pounding in my ears. I still remember that guy's disgusting breath and his hands on me. Oh god, this is so sad because now we have no idea that guy was Daichi. No matter how many years passed, I'd never get used to it. I got out of his car as soon as I spotted the Okiya. I felt exhausted even though I hadn't moved at all during the whole night. I looked at Hikaru who got out of the car too. Thanks for dinner. I enjoyed it a lot. It doesn't seem like it. I let out a weak laugh. I shouldn't have left you alone. His words sounded sincere. Good night, Rua. Good night, Hikaru. Aww, I'll miss him. God, I miss him so much already. Well, we have all the CGs, which is Hikaru in the room, Hikaru with the rest of his gang looking hot as hell, and us in the mirror looking super pretty. But yeah, I really like this game. Hikaru is a very interesting character. I'm gonna be honest, I'm a big fan of slow burn yandere games, where a lot of the story is slowly set up and then everything starts gently unraveling until it all inevitably crashes down. I adore stuff like that so much. I feel like it's really nice when the lore and the scenery and the world is just set up, and then not only do you experience a story, it also feels like experience all the aspects of the world as well, because you can take the time to just like peruse and appreciate and notice like all these little fine details. So I really do like slow burn yandere and slow burn visual novels. Now back to Hikaru, he's a very interesting man. I think I can definitely tell that a lot of this is quite new to him. He does mention like he doesn't notice a lot of things that some people notice, so I think that's a really interesting aspect about his personality. But also at the same time, going back to the whole slow burn thing, his yandere behaviors were very subtle to you, but they weren't subtle to everyone else around him. It's the way that he uses his powers to essentially control and constrict aspects of your life without you even knowing. I think that has potential to be really scary, because he has booked you up completely without you even knowing, because assuming he's told your mother to not tell you. He has paid for your electricity entirely for a year and disguised it under the guise of you winning a competition. He has threatened your landlord into reducing your rent without you even knowing and threatening the landlord to not be able to tell you. I have a suspicion that he is responsible for Daichi's downfall and Daichi not coming to see you as well. Yeah, just a lot of little things in the background that you're slowly starting to notice, but you can't possibly connect them with him right now because you don't know him well enough to. But despite him being polite towards you and putting up a pretense, that which is something that he admits to Dog, he mentions that he adopts his sister's mannerisms and takes like, you know, qualities from her and people in his family that don't seem to be in the Yakuza business, and puts on that kind of mask to convince you that he is like, you know, a gentleman that really likes and cares about you and is just a really refined man, which is very scary, because I think that we don't really see the real Hikaru for a lot of the game because he's got that mask on, which I think that is why when you buy into going along with him, agreeing with him, and liking the way that he speaks to you when he's got his mask on, he doesn't really gain the affection that he needs to be able to unlock that final ending scene with Dog. But when you push back against that mask and say things that he doesn't expect, like when you compliment him for his art collection, when he lets that slip because you can tell that it's a passion, he sees that you are pushing past that facade that he's putting on. You are engaging with the real him and encouraging him. And that's when he starts building the affection with you. And that is how you unlock the final ending, because you need a high affection in the demo to unlock that ending scene with him and Dog for the last CG. And you can only get those points when you like push back against him, argue with him, or challenge him and basically subvert his expectations, because he expects you as someone who would like this masked facade of him that he's adopted from, like, you know, his sisters and people that he knows, people that he respects most likely. So when you prove him wrong, he's like, hang on, I think she actually likes me for me when I start to show bits of myself. And he starts getting like, you know, blushy and like he starts slipping up. And I think that's a very interesting quality about him that I personally found quite cute. I'm very interested to see where this goes. I really enjoyed this. I think the writer did a wonderful job setting, one, the world building, two, Hikaru's personality and how clever the choices leaned in to really environmentally like tell the way that his personality truly is. I thought that was done very cleverly and I really liked it. When it comes to playing visual novels, you would pick like the good options, right? You pick the ones where you want to like go along with him and be agreeable because you think that's the one that gets you the romance wrap. But with Hikaru, it seems like he likes the opposite ones. And I thought that was very interesting. The art, absolutely gorgeous. I thought the backgrounds are so pretty. The UI is really pretty. The art style for Hikaru's sprites and the CGs are so incredibly gorgeous. That painterly style is so beautiful. I loved looking at it. I think there's been a lot of research that has gone into this visual novel, from things like the decor, even like the omamori and the patterns, and the UI, Hikaru's design, the way that like the world is set up, and also the knowledge about training as a geisha and working as a geisha. A lot of this is in the visual novel, and you can tell that the developer has put a lot of effort into making sure that a lot of these details were as correct and well researched as possible. We did have the disclaimer that this wasn't a 100% realistic depiction of how a geisha actually lives, which is a really nice touch. I think aside from that, not portraying you as like 100% accurate, faithful representation of a real life geisha because of the way that the story flows, despite that, a lot of the details and the research and a lot of the history about the geisha and a lot of knowledge about the profession itself are still reflected in the visual novel. And I really appreciated that. I love when developers take the time to research a culture and make sure it's properly implemented, especially something that is as traditional and well respected as working as a geisha. But yeah, this visual novel was absolutely wonderful. I adored the slow burners, I adored the art, I loved Hikaru and the person that he is slowly revealing himself to be. I think that is a lot of fun and I can't wait to see him again. Yeah, I genuinely cannot wait to play this again. This was such a wonderful game and I am so happy that I got to check this out. Thank you so very much for hanging out with me. If you guys like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. If you'd like to check out this game for yourself, I have linked that in the description box below. If you're able to, please leave a couple of kind words for the developer. They worked very hard on this. And also if you'd like to support me, my Patreon is linked in the description box below as well. Supporting me monetarily is never mandatory, but it's always very appreciated. Anyway, thank you so much and until next time, take care.